Welcome to TWD Symbolism Analysis, hosted by me at TWD Music Box Mystery, also known as author Lisa K. Hill. This is where we totally geek out about the recurring symbols we see in the show, what they mean, how they connect, and what they foreshadow. So if you're a TWD geek, come over to the dark side. We have Daryl. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Today we are going to talk about the dog star symbolism. It's probably the most important Beth symbolism that is on the show for us. All right, so what is the dog star? Also known as Sirius, spelled Sirius, so kind of like J.K. Rowling spelled Harry's godfather's name. It is a real constellation. It's found up in Canis Major, which is also known as the Great Dog, and it's often shown as the eye of the dog. There's a lot of different real-world logos and things that use it that way. It's the brightest star in the sky. And understand, guys, this isn't part of the show, and this isn't part of mythology. This is a real thing. This star was used often, especially in ancient civilizations like Egypt, to tell what time of year it was. So it is in the sky and can be seen, and then it disappears for a good chunk of the year, and then reappears just before dawn in the late summertime. And the Egyptians would use the reappearance of the dog star to determine when the Nile would flood, which is interesting in terms of TD symbolism because we've seen water associated with Beth quite a lot. And I've recently made a connection that, one of those things, maybe other people have made this a long time ago, but it just sort of clicked for me. And that is that we've seen a lot of dry riverbeds. And I think that's to show that Beth or the water is not here yet. So 0 water equals 0 Beth. And so it's interesting that when the dog star showed up again, that's when the Nile in Egypt would flood. So you're basically looking at when the dog star returns, you also get a return of a great deal of water. I think that's really important, and I think the show has made a lot of use of that symbolism. So we know that this symbolism is connected to Beth mostly because of the one-eyed dog that we saw in Alone. That made it very, very connected to her and Daryl, and it was right after that she disappeared. Now, of course, that wasn't the beginning of her actual death fake-out, but that was when she got separated from Daryl, and they didn't really come back together again after that. Even though they saw each other really, really briefly in the hallway at Grady before she was shot, they didn't really get a reunion. So that was sort of the beginning of her arc, and it was a foreshadow that she was going to disappear for a good chunk of time, many seasons, and she should return probably with a sunrise or just before a sunrise, and there's going to be some sort of water involved in her storyline. And, for a long time, we didn't really know exactly what that meant or exactly how that would manifest in the show. But now that we know a lot more about this helicopter group where the helicopter group that took Rick, and as far as we know, Heath is still with them as well. We learned from Fear the Walking Dead when Al, who's one of the characters in that show, met Isabel. She's a member of the helicopter group. She told them that the helicopter group was purifying water. So the helicopter group has everything to do with water. So that's why we think Beth is probably with them as well and will return in some way to do with that helicopter group. All right, what else about the dog star? So another thing that's important to understand is this is something one of my fellow theorists figured out. I will link to her account in the show notes. And that is that Robert Frost, the famous poet, has several poems that are specifically about Sirius the dog star. He mentions it quite explicitly in his poems, and he just liked that symbolism and used it. So she figured out that the Frosty Cola stuff that we see around Beth, we see it around her and Daryl for sure with the dinner, but we've seen it a few other places too. That is a reference to Robert Frost, which is also a Sirius reference. So it's a reference to Beth and the return and all of that. A few other things about the Sirius star, and again, these are about the constellation, so this is real stuff. It's the brightest star in the sky. Mythology around it often refers to it as scorching or sparkling or burning, and it is a type A star. Now that's an astrology thing, but we also have the A theory. We've seen a lot of A's around, so that could also have something to do with Sirius symbolism. I've mentioned this before, but since Beth, there have been several characters that have sort of been Sirius characters. So I'll go through this really fast. I'm not going to go into detail about how each of them are Sirius characters. A lot of times it's because of the eye. We believe Noah was one. He didn't have the eye issue, but there's other reasons we believe he was one. With each of these characters, they eventually get killed off and someone else sort of takes over for them. So not too long after Noah died, Denise came on the scene, and we didn't know she was a Sirius character either for a while, but she had eye issues because she wore glasses, and then when she was killed, there was an arrow through her eye. So that made her a Sirius character. About the time she died, Carl lost his eye, which made him the Sirius character. And right around the time Carl died, Father Gabriel lost one of his eyes. So now he's the Sirius character. And so it kind of goes through things like that. There's other stuff that's very synonymous with this, including blue coolers and bear or beer symbolism. You can check out my friend's account. She's got a lot more detail on that. But this is just something that we really keep an eye on because it's sort of the overarching symbolism for Beth's return. Because of that one-eyed dog in Alone, it showed that she would be disappearing and then reappearing. Remember, there was also her line about being gone, which most people assume means that she's dead. And, maybe this is a good time to throw this one other thing in about gone. Obviously, gone can mean a lot of different things, but the way they specifically use it in the show, when they actually use the phrase that somebody or something is gone, it always returns after that. So again, obviously it doesn't always mean that in real life, but the way they use it in the show, when somebody is gone, they pretty much always come back. So being gone is always linked to a return. One of the biggest confirmations we have of that comes from season 4, episode 16, when Michonne was talking to Carl and telling him her story about how after she lost her son, she sort of lost her humanity and became very numb and was just walking around with her 2 walker pets, right? And she actually uses the phrase, "I was gone for a long time." And then she talks about how she came back. Finding people she loved, including Carl and Rick, brought her back. So being gone, again, it's just the way that they always use it in the show, is always associated with a return. So that's why when Beth says, "You're going to miss me so bad when I'm gone," and then Daryl said to Rick at the end of season 4, "She's just gone," it shows that she's going to return in some way. And the Sirius symbolism is all about that too. So I hope that's clear. And yeah, we will see you in the next video.